There has been loads of talk about the things that Red Bull have done to solve porpoising. After looking at photos of different teams' floors, it looks like Red Bull found another genius addition to their car, and that's going to help solve the problem. If you told me you'd guessed that Red Bull would use ice skates to help solve the bouncing, then I would call you a liar. But that's exactly what they've done, so let me show you how. As the season has progressed, we've had more and more opportunities to take a look at the underside of different cars on the grid. Red Bull kindly gave us a look recently when they flipped their car floor on its side while it was out of the garage. The immediate thing to notice is how complex the floor looks. When you compare it to photos of Mercedes and Ferrari's floor, you see there are a lot more sharp angles and small elevations and depressions. The Mercedes and Ferrari floors kind of look like a first draft of something. It is simple, shows a general plan, but they haven't managed to refine and improve it yet. Red Bull's, on the other hand, looks like a finished piece of work. They've made little changes here and there to refine it and make it the best possible floor they can. One part that really stands out, for a lot of reasons, is the small metal skids at the rear of their floor. They kind of look like ice skates when you look closely. It's an industrial looking piece of metal with holes along its length. Both the placement and the material are really important here and tell us a lot about the part's purpose. But before we can look at what the part does, we need to understand how the ground effect floors work. You'll see down the center of the floor there's a large protrusion. This part sits low to the floor to make space for things like the fuel tank, battery, and large sections of the powertrain. Either side of the flat protrusion are two curved sections. When viewed from the side, it looks like a smiley face. So at the front and rear of the car, the floor is further away from the ground. It is this shape that creates what is known as a Venturi tunnel. The air at the front and back of the floor is moving slower and is higher pressure. As the air moves from the front of the car to the back, there is less space for the air to move through, so the air moves faster. By narrowing the space the air can move through and forcing the air to move faster, you create a low pressure area that sucks the floor of the car down. The actual science behind ground effect floors is really quite simple. It's the making it work that's the hard part. For a ground effect floor to work to the best of its ability, you need to find a way to limit the amount of air that travels under the floor. But if there's too little air, the pressure under the car gets too low and you get porpoising. Obviously, it's this balancing act that teams like Mercedes have failed to achieve, while Red Bull have. Every part of the ground effect floor and a large part of the front wing are designed to ensure that the right amount of air is going under the floor. Too little and the air stalls, loses downforce and starts to porpoise. Too much and the car doesn't have any downforce and your ground effect floors just become a regular old floor. That balance would be easy to achieve if the cars were at a constant speed. You could know exactly how much downforce the floor was going to generate, and you could tailor the floor to generate the precise amount of downforce you wanted. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you've noticed, F1 cars don't travel at a consistent speed. Let's use Mercedes as an example here, as they suffer more than other cars. Their floor probably generates the perfect amount of downforce for them when they're traveling at, say, 200 kilometers an hour. But once they hit 250 kilometers an hour, it starts to generate too much. They get too close to the ground, the air stalls, and they start porpoising. If you change the floor so that it generates your perfect amount of downforce at 250 kilometers an hour, then it won't generate enough at 200 kilometers an hour, and the car will become undrivable at low speeds. At the moment, the car is great at low speeds, but at high speeds, it's almost undrivable. It's a balancing act they've yet to find a solution to. There is no way of making your floor perfect at all speeds unless it literally changed shape depending on what speed you were going. That would be incredibly difficult to make happen and probably deemed illegal by the FIA even if you did. What you instead have to do is find things you can do elsewhere in the car to help alleviate the problem. George Russell had asked for active suspension to be implemented earlier in the season to help with the problem, but his cries fell on deaf ears. There were rumours earlier in the season that Red Bull had managed to implement some sort of suspension system into the rear of their car that changed in some way at higher speeds. Unfortunately, whatever they have done is very tucked away inside the car, so we haven't managed to get a look at it yet. What we have now seen is this ice skate looking thing at the rear of the floor. I said earlier that its material and placement were interesting and very telling to what it's for. The skate is made of metal, unlike the rest of the floor which is all carbon. Why use metal over carbon? It's stronger and less prone to damage. It is much heavier though, so the only reason they would be using it is for its durability. When cars are porpoising, it is the rear of the car that bounces and hits the road. Red Bull have placed their skates right at the back of the car. These two facts combined make it pretty obvious that these two small strips of metal are an integral part of stopping the car from porpoising. As the car gets faster, the downforce acting on it increases and it gets closer to the ground. Then the air has no space to travel under the car, you get a sharp drop in downforce and the car starts to porpoise. By having this metal skate, the car can never get so low to the ground that the air stalls. As the Red Bull hits high speed, it'll start to ride on these skates, literally like it was ice skating. It is an incredibly inventive solution, but one that seems so simple when you think about it. The idea is so perfectly Red Bull as well. The team have been innovative and imaginative this season with their car design, and this is just another piece of genius from the design team led by Adrian Newey. They've even drilled holes in it to allow air to travel through it so they don't inhibit the Venturi tunnels. If that wasn't enough, they also serve a second purpose. The metal skate inhibits the floor's flexion under load, which is another cause of porpoising. Earlier in the season, many teams complained of having to add metal stays to the inside of their floors to stop it flexing under load. It was a large part of why there were calls from around the paddock for the minimum weight limit to be raised, because many teams were finding they had to keep adding more weight to their cars. If that wasn't enough for you, its shape hints at a third purpose as well. The surface is not only closely aligned with the floor edge drop-off, it also takes an abrupt turn towards the rear edge, which will result in the creation of a vortex. All the teams on the grid have been trying to make vortices along the edge of their car to stop air escaping and help channel the air onto their rear diffuser and beam wing. By using the skates to create a vortex under the car, Red Bull have been able to channel the air even more precisely. They'll be keeping more air under the car than other teams and directing it in a more controlled manner through their rear diffuser and onto their beam wing. It's likely they've made modifications to make the most of this effect as well. It may only be creating a fraction of a percent more downforce, but in a sport like F1, every little helps. How do you think Red Bull managed to come up with such a simple addition to their car while teams like Mercedes are still struggling? Is the Constructors' Championship going to be won by Red Bull's design team this year, thanks to their ability to outthink the competition? Let us know what you think in the comments section. And make sure to hit the notification button and give us a like while you're there. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.